Hello, welcome to Aging Well in America. I'm Marie Gattari, your host. Every day, up to 10,000 people turn 65 years old in the United States. 5.5 million people are the age of 85 or older. By the year 2050, that number grows to 20 million. 20 million people will be older than 85 years old. There's a lot of good work going on around the world, around the country, and right here in our own community. And with us today is one of those special people, Dr. Tom Jankowski from Wayne State University's Institute of Gerontology. Welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Great. You've done and are doing, continue to do some very important research in the area of aging. Some of it focuses on various communities, what's going on in individual communities right here in southeastern Michigan, as well as poverty, which is something we don't often think about here in the Grosse Pointes, but in our conversations earlier, you made some good points, and I wonder if we might start off talking about some of that research and what your findings are showing.
Well, what I have found in some recent research that I've done is that according to the official federal poverty statistics, only about 9% of people aged 65 and older in Michigan are living below the poverty line.
Okay.
That's the official poverty line. But the way that's calculated doesn't really take into account differences in cost of living and out-of-pocket expenses, which for older people, out-of-pocket expenses for medical costs are just huge, a huge part of their budget. So if you take into account what it costs to pay a mortgage or rent, to pay for a car, transportation, health care in particular, and you add those things all up, you find out that in Michigan we actually have about over a third of people age 65 or older who are having trouble making ends meet. And
really?
Even in places like Grosse Pointe, which people think of as a very affluent community, you still have probably about a quarter of seniors who live in this area who are having to cut corners, having to cut pills in half or skip meals or not go to see a doctor when they think they might need to, just because they can't afford to do it.
We spoke about their homes. Many elderly people own their own homes, and so again, the thinking often follows that if you own your own home, you're in much better shape, but the reality of day-to-day expenses still is felt, whether you're making a house payment or not.
Right, because when you retire, no matter what income you're accustomed to living at, your income goes down dramatically. And as people are living longer and taking on more responsibility for funding their own retirements, I mean, the defined benefit pensions are going away and being replaced by defined contribution pensions, so it's possible now to outlive your savings. So we actually see that poverty rate among the oldest part of the population go up as people get older. The 85 plus folks are the ones who are most in need of support and have the least amount of resources available to them.
You talked about what some communities are doing, specifically time banks or shared different types of errands and tasks that people might need help with that they might otherwise pay for. I think you mentioned some interesting things going on in Oakland County and Huntington Woods and Ferndale.
Yeah, well, you know, in that area they're doing a lot of work with time banks, and you know, the thing is, as the population gets older, we're going to have more and more people who are living alone, who are living in houses that they're having difficulty maintaining, but can't really afford to move. And so this is going to have a community impact. But I think that it's a mistake to look just at what we need to provide for the older population to help them maintain their independence and their dignity and their well-being at home, but also what they can give back to the community, because I talk to a lot of older people who are just looking for a great volunteer opportunity. They want to help out, and they can do all kinds of things that can be useful to a lot of people.
That's right.
So I think there's a certain amount of reciprocity that we have to get used to encouraging as our population gets older.
What's a time bank? How does that work?
A time bank is where you sign up, you join the time bank, and then you find the tasks that other folks are looking for that you can do, and you put in some volunteer time. And as you bank time, then you can get other people to volunteer to do things for you. So I may be, say I'm 75 years old and I don't walk so well anymore, but I can babysit children and I can bake bread and I can do all kinds of useful things, help people start a business. I may be a retired businessman who's got a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom to offer. And so I can bank that time that I put into those volunteer efforts and get somebody in return to come and mow my lawn or clean out my gutters, get up on a ladder, the kind of things that I really shouldn't be doing myself anymore.
The kind of things that the kid down the street would come and you'd pay him a few dollars to do, but maybe now he'll do it in exchange for...
In exchange for me helping him with his math homework.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And what a great idea, too, to have that, that real human interaction and connection, which we seem to be getting away from with our electronics.
We do. It's a good community builder, and that's why it's so important, I think, to do all we can to help keep people safe in their own homes, because they can remain a part of their community. They can go to their church and, you know, go to their Rotary Club meetings and still be an active member of the community when they're able to stay in their homes.
Where are these time banks? Who starts them?
You know, they're done locally. It's escaping me which Oakland County community is sort of ahead of the curve on it, but several of them are working on them right now, and I would like to see them spread because, frankly, people are still retiring in their mid-60s. The age of retirement is actually trending up very quickly. It went down for about 40 years, bottomed out in the 1980s, and then sort of trended up slowly, and since the last economic crisis has gone up quite a bit. So people are working a lot longer, but still we can expect to have 20 good years in retirement of relative health.
Sure.
And I think that's a tremendous community resource.
Sure.
If we can find volunteer opportunities for people, not only does it help their neighbors, but it helps them to find meaning in their lives, to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and people who are active in their communities, even at advanced ages, are happier with their lives and they're healthier.
I would think that a place to start for somebody who may be interested in perhaps pursuing this idea would be at maybe a senior citizen center in their community, a library. Right here in Grosse Pointe, we have the neighborhood club, which recently reopened with lots of cool things going on. Would those seem like logical places to take this interest and perhaps gather people around who are interested and build it from the bottom up?
Absolutely, and they can be. It doesn't have to be just older people. So if you are interested in knitting, there are knitting groups.
Right.
You know, you can volunteer at the library. You can volunteer. A lot of churches do a lot of community work and outreach and those kind of things. And so I would say, find something that you enjoy and that you're committed to, and get involved.
It's as easy as that, isn't it?
Yes.
And then if the other part, other part comes, then all the better.
Right. Exactly.
All the better for it. Yeah. Your research is, of course, open. It's available to the public. It's on Wayne State's Institute of Gerontology's website.
Yes.
Is that a good place for people to go who want to learn and read more about what you've been doing? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into the area of aging? What prompted that interest?
Well, my background is in political science. That's what my PhD is in.
Okay.
But my doctoral research was on voting and aging, and actually political participation in general and aging. And why does it seem that people who, as they get older, they vote more often? And any politician will tell you that the seniors are the most reliable voters out there. They pay attention, they read about politics, and that's very important. Reading about politics is how you learn about it. But they're also deeply committed to their communities. They're homeowners, they have a stake in the community, they want to see things go well. And so they're highly motivated and well equipped to be very effective citizens. And so I started out in studying politics and ended up becoming fascinated with the whole process of aging across the lifespan, and ended up in the Institute of Gerontology, where I learn new things every day because it's a multidisciplinary institute. So I'm the political scientist, and I do a lot of public policy and demographic work, but we have economists and a lot of psychologists, sociologists, social workers, occupational therapists, anthropologists, people from every academic discipline. And the one thing that ties us all together is we're interested in the process of aging and how society deals with older people and an older population.
And how does society deal with older people?
Well,
in a word or two.
So far, not too well. I have to be a bit of a
Unfortunately.
critic.
Yeah.
And we do have a very youth-oriented society. And so I think frequently older people are not appreciated for what they have to offer. And they're not respected in the way that they are in some more traditional societies. But I think this is going to change because, I mean, the population is getting older. And I just looked up the statistics this morning before I came down. Within about 10 years, there will be more people age 65 and older in the Grosse Pointes than there are people age 18 and younger. So for the first time ever, probably ever in human history, we'll have more older people than we have young people. And so that's going to result in all kinds of changes that we can either anticipate and prepare for, or we can sort of rail against the inevitable or just ignore it. And my argument is that we ought to prepare for it because it's going to happen.
Right. So to put it another way, more older people than there are school-age children.
Yes.
Right here in the Grosse Pointes.
Yes, exactly. And so, you know, there's conventional wisdom that older people won't vote for school millages and that, but they will. They want their children and their grandchildren to get a good education too. But you have to make the case to them as to why it's important.
Right. Right.
And so I think older people are very community-minded. And so I wouldn't immediately start wringing my hands and saying, oh, how are we going to fund our schools? I think there will be no problem doing that. In fact, some of the work that's being done in gerontology really brings the older population and the schools together in a way that's beneficial to everybody involved. There's a project that started in Baltimore called Experience Corps that brings people from the neighborhood who are older. They don't have to have a huge formal education. Some of these people haven't even graduated from high school. And they bring them in to tutor in the local elementary schools, tutor children how to read. And it turns out that it's great for the kids. Not only do they learn more, but truancy rates go down, behavioral problems go down. Teachers have a little bit of relief because they're getting some help. The administrators like it. And the older people just thrive. They report, you know, having very meaningful, positive experiences, and it's just a win-win situation for everybody. And I would like to see those kind of things happen as our population ages. Get people involved.
So when you talk about preparing for it, this is one of the ways. Again, we're getting back to volunteering, being active in your community, being involved, really inserting yourself, and that requires, of course, those who are physically able and don't have the cognitive impairment that comes along with dementia and Alzheimer's, unfortunately.
Well, and one of the things that we talked about was how people, as they age, they actually become more different. And so, you know, we tend to think of old people as this monolithic group, but they're not at all. And that is across the board in terms of socioeconomics and health and everything. So among the older population, you have people who in fragile health and who are economically very insecure and they need a lot of support. And you also have in the exact same age group people who are very healthy, have an enormous amount of experience and wisdom and knowledge and are willing to get out there and help.
As I'm hearing you talk, Tom, I think of my own parents. My dad lived to 90, my mom to 89. Very long, full lives, but they tended to become isolated as they grew older, and part of it was because of their inability to get out and get around. It became more difficult to walk.
Yes.
And when my mom was younger, she had 10 children throughout her childbearing years, and yet she was always the one who the family turned to. And I remember her once saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And That seems to be true with what you're saying. I'm hearing that. I mean, the busier you are, regardless of your age, you can be asked to even do more, and you'll probably find a way to get it done. And that I think we really do need everybody, regardless of our age, adult children of the aging. Maybe we need to focus their attention on those kinds of activities, not just leisure, but the true giving back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know as an adult child of aging with somebody with a lot of needs, my focus was how to get them through the day and take care of their ADLs, their activities of daily living. But I wonder if we couldn't have shifted, my sisters and I, some of that focus a little bit to make it more balanced.
Yeah, I mean, even people who have mobility problems, if they get the kind of support that they need, there's an awful lot they can do. But really, those kind of things have to start at relatively younger ages.
They really do, don't they?
So the people that you see who are, 65 to 75, they, I mean, if you go into any church meeting or any Rotary Club meeting, I mean, that's who you see there.
Right.
When I talk to groups, I say, imagine, just close your eyes and imagine your church council or your Kiwanis Club or any kind of community group like that, and imagine all the older people gone. I mean, half the people would be gone. We really need to rely on those folks. And I think that as they stay engaged and active at earlier ages, then once they're in their 70s and 80s, then they tend to be healthier. I think sometimes the sedentary lifestyle and being socially isolated is sort of a downward spiral. It leads to health problems, which then makes it more difficult to get out, and you just enter this slow decline.
Yes.
So I would encourage people who are able to get around at all to stretch themselves a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
Seek out the help they need and set foot outside of your door,
Right.
even if it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Great advice. Your personal experience, your parents, your grandparents, I'm sure that they had a big influence in your interest in this area?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a grandmother with Alzheimer's disease, and my grandfather was her caregiver, and he died at 87, and she was in advanced Alzheimer's by then, but he was her primary caregiver for 15 years with Alzheimer's disease. And it was... I had a lot of admiration for what he did, and he's sort of my role model in that area.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, especially now since families are smaller, I only have one sibling. Many families only have 2 or 3 kids now when they used to have much larger families. And so a lot of us are going to be facing that issue of dealing with aging parents and having to provide the support they need.
And then as we become the aging parent, and then we have fewer children behind us.
Right.
We really are going to have to rely on each other as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next? What's your next research area?
Well, I'm still very interested in this notion of hidden poverty in the older population. I mean, we see a lot of silver-haired people driving Cadillacs and going to Florida for the winter, and that's sort of the public notion we have of what it's like to be in retirement. But there are an awful lot of people who are really scraping to get by, and sometimes the official statistics sort of mask that problem, which is why I call it invisible poverty. And the Census Bureau has done some great work recently with this supplemental poverty measure. Part of the problem is the way we measure poverty. It's an outdated measure. It doesn't really tell you much. And so if you take into account all of the expenses that come with getting older, and the largest is out-of-pocket medical expenses, then you find that the poverty rate of the older population, really it's not 9 or 10%, it's more like 20%.
Yeah. And where will your research take us then? Just shining a light on it, of course, is one of the first steps to being able to resolve issues. But
well, what I've been doing is a lot of consulting and advising of local governments and county governments of how to prepare for this. I mean, one of the things that is going to happen is if your older population grows by 50 or 100% over the next 20 years and the rest of your population stays the same, then the use of emergency medical services is going to go way up. So cities are going to have to spend more on those kind of things. The buying habits of people change as they get older, so merchants are going to have to adjust to that. There's a whole period of adjustment that's going to come with the aging of the population that we don't always do a good job of paying attention to right now.
You mentioned earlier some work you're doing in Calhoun County near where Battle Creek is.
Yes.
What are you doing there?
Well, we're doing a needs assessment to try to find out what services that the county can provide to help people maintain their well-being and their independence and their security and safety in their own homes. Well, one of the things that Calhoun County has is a senior dedicated millage. So they are able to raise over $2 million a year to spend on senior services. And in Wayne County, we don't have that. In fact, something like about 66 of the counties of Michigan's 83 counties have senior dedicated millages.
Really?
But none of them are in southeast Michigan, except for Monroe County. So in order to support our older population and allow them to give back to their communities, we're going to have to provide a higher level of service than we're accustomed to on the local level. Like I said, emergency medical services are one, maybe some help with maintaining homes, which becomes difficult as you get older. So I think there are a lot of creative solutions to that. I'm not arguing that the cities need to raise taxes and put a lot more money into services,
Right,
but
sure.
a lot of times, for example, people can afford to pay for their own services, but they don't know how to get them, and they don't know how they can learn who to trust and who not to trust. So some
Yes.
cities start gatekeeper type of programs where they vet a number of providers. Say, I will check out somebody who does heating and cooling and find out that they're elder friendly, they're reputable, they're honest, and they're willing to give the city a 20% discount in return for the guarantee of some business. So there may be sort of a concierge service where you can call one number and you can say, I need my furnace cleaned, I need my gutters cleaned out, I need somebody to shovel my snow, and I need somebody I can trust to do this. And so the city might provide those kind of things. They pay out of pocket, but they get a discount and they can have confidence that who's coming to their house is somebody who can be trusted.
And that's what the millage, the senior dedicated millage, would have contributed to, that concierge service,
Well,
or that
that's what we're
screening.
looking at. They're not currently providing any kind of chore services.
What are they doing?
A lot of what they're doing is, unfortunately, filling some of the gaps that are in Medicare. You know, Medicare does not pay for dental work. And oral health is so critical to a person's overall health, and yet Medicare doesn't pay for it. Medicare does not pay for hearing aids. And so if you're losing your hearing, there's very little place that you can turn if you don't have the money to buy your own hearing aids, which can be very expensive. You know, foot care, eye care, those kind of high acuity needs that sort of fall through the cracks of our insurance system.
Really? So millages in some of these communities are paying for these personal health care services.
Healthcare services, legal services. I mean,
Very
people,
interesting.
you know, people who are getting to a certain age need to have a will. They need to have a
Sure.
power of attorney and advance directives, and sometimes that is best accomplished with some legal advice.
I see.
And people can't afford to pay lawyers, so.
Okay.
So legal aid is
they're
another area.
they're really using them then for individual well-being services as opposed to
And to support the local senior center.
yeah. Where again a lot of these nice programs are happening also.
Yes.
With a big emphasis on leisure activities and volunteerism.
Travel.
And travel,
yes,
which
people
all
love
the fun
travel.
things. Yeah, really good.
Yes.
Really good. So if you were able to write the grant and get the funds that you wanted, where would you spend your research time and dollars
Wow, that's
going forward?
That's for research.
What else do you want to find out
Well,
that you...
you know, my passion lately has been in using the research to inform action.
Yes,
And
yes.
a lot of that action has to take place on the local level. And I
Yes.
think we're not doing nearly
Yes.
what we could with intergenerational programming, you know, getting older people and younger people together, doing things together, helping each other,
Yes.
Young families and older couples in the same neighborhood. A lot of times we, you know, barely wave over the backyard fence
Yeah.
when we could really be helping each other quite a bit.
Sure, sure. Well, it's just, there's such great opportunities, and really it's just a matter of people getting out, like you said, open the front door, step out, and
And think outside the box a little bit.
oh, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we know that Wayne State's Institute of Gerontology is one of the foremost research institutes in the world, really, in the area of aging. And we're so pleased and honored to have you right here in our backyard, and to have your great resources at hand. So again, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. We encourage our viewers to go on your website to look at the work you've done, get ideas, take them to their neighbors and to their community leaders, and see what they can get started to help us. Everybody can help prepare for the continued growing number of those of us that are aging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, and we hope you'll come back again to see us again, and next time you've got your next research project is concluded.
I certainly will.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have come to another end of our Aging Well in America show. As always, we look for your ideas. Please do send them to us here at the Grosse Pointe War Memorial. Thank you.
Who she's been